Hello, everyone. Hello, I'm Susan Cole,
And I'm Matthew Hodson.
and welcome to aidsmapCHAT, our show bringing you news for people living with HIV all around the globe.
We've got another fabulous lineup of guests this week. We have Dr Mina Hosseinipour, who will be reporting on a new PrEP trial where PrEP is administered by injection every 2 months. We've also got entertainment reporter and a TV producer, Karl Schmid, who will be coming to us live from Los Angeles, and our good friend, Denis Onyango of the Africa Advocacy Foundation.
Wonderful. What brilliant guests we have this week.
It is very exciting indeed. And talking of exciting, I believe that someone's had a birthday recently.
Yes, that's right. I've just
Well, lots
turned
of people have had a birthday recently, but you had a birthday recently.
I did indeed. Yeah, I'm like now 32.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How was
Yeah,
it
it
for
was.
you, turning
Yeah.
32 again?
I know, absolutely. Yeah, I was like 5 when I had my kids, but hey. But yeah, I had it was a very different sort of birthday because we're in lockdown in London, but I actually did manage to have a very nice time. I went for a walk in Greenwich Park in the pouring rain with my son James, who lives on the other side of London, but at least I was able to see him. But one thing that I found at the moment is that I'm actually able to squeeze out bits of joy through this lockdown, perhaps more than I was before. So, I was really enjoying all my social media, birthday messages, and just really appreciating little things that perhaps I didn't before. So, there are some benefits. And
Oh.
how about you, Matthew? What have you been doing?
I've mainly been watching The Crown. Yeah, and I've got through the whole season, which it was. I know it's terrible, but I really enjoy it because it's that period of history which I know really well and I remember it all, and and I mean it's not a spoiler because it's history, so we kind of get to the end, and we've got Diana and she's getting involved in HIV. And I remember that moment. I remember the very famous photograph of Diana shaking the hand of someone who's living with HIV in an AIDS ward at a time when people with HIV, they were often completely excluded from society. Even nurses would push their food kind of kind of through the doors and kind of wait for them to pick it up because they didn't want to touch them. And so that photograph, that image of Diana shaking someone with HIV's hand was really important. And she said in a speech in 1991, she said, it's okay to hug people with HIV. Goodness knows they need it. And that was where we were in 1991. But where we are now is that we now know that on effective treatment, we can't pass the virus on. So it's not just about hugging. We can have sex without condoms, without any risk of HIV transmission. And it's really important that that's the message we share now. So
Yeah, absolutely. And as a segue, if only we had someone that's worked on that and bringing that information to join us. So, Dr. Mina, can we have you on?
Oh, hi.
Hi, Mina. How are you?
I'm
Glorious
fine.
Malawi.
Yeah, it's very nice here.
Mina, this is going to be the nerdiest fanboy question that I have ever delivered. But you worked on one of my favorite studies of all time because you worked on HPTN 052, which was the first study which was really examining the impact of, which was set out to examine the impact of treatment as prevention. So it's one of those studies which we talk about when we talk about the rigorous scientific studies which back up undetectable equals untransmittable. Did you realize how significant it was at the time?
Well, intuitively, it made sense that if we suppress the virus, that we should be able to decrease transmission. But I think it was a little bit beyond my expectations that it would essentially stop all transmissions if the person was fully suppressed. And that's what we were able to show among the infections that were linked, where we knew it was the index partner who was living with HIV and their partner, and we could link that these infections were tied, they only occurred if somebody was unsuppressed very early as they were starting antiretrovirals before they were suppressed. Otherwise, there were none. So it really was just a perfect demonstration of U equal U. And we also showed that it's better to start treatment earlier with the study. So it was like a home run because it showed antiretrovirals are good for the infected individual living with HIV and also to prevent transmission to the partners. So yeah, I couldn't have been more excited when we got the results, and it was durable. You know, we first reported in 2011, and then we looked at it again after another 5 years of follow-up, and we still saw really remarkable, consistent results. So it was just, you know, the best study I think that I'll ever be involved in.
But
until
yet,
now.
So we've got to talk about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So Mina, you're very much at the vanguard of new development. So something very exciting has happened recently with injectable PrEP. Can you tell us about that?
Oh, sure, I'd love to. So the HIV Prevention Trials Network is at it again, this time with HPTN 084. This was a study in women in sub-Saharan Africa, and it compared taking a injectable antiretroviral called cabotegravir every 8 weeks versus taking the known standard of daily oral Truvada. And then it followed the women to determine if they became infected with HIV. And we had our DSMB meeting. This is our external review board that lets us know how the trial is going. They can see the unblinded data. We as investigators and the participants don't know who's on which arm. And they reviewed our data on November 5th. And we, in fact, had a result that showed that the injectable cabotegravir was superior to the daily oral pill, and by a fair amount. Both arms worked fairly well. Even the oral Truvada arm had a lower rate of infections than we had planned for. It had what we call an incidence of 1.79%, but the injectable was 0.21%, which is one of the lowest rates that we could imagine. It was really remarkable. There were 9 times more infections in the oral Truvada arm and at 89% reduction in transmission to the women. So really just out of the ballpark kind of results. Yeah. Just really impressive.
It is really exciting because it means, because there have been some challenges around PrEP, and particularly among women, and you know, the studies we've been looking at from sub-Saharan Africa. But just to kind of, I think it's really important that we also acknowledge that actually the challenges are often around access to the medication or adherence to the medication. So it's not that oral PrEP doesn't work. It's just that if you can administer it in a different way, and in this long-acting way, that people are adherent. How difficult, how challenging do you think it's going to be to kind of maintain the deliveries of those injections over a longer period?
Well, we do still have a lot of work to do in the study, and part of that is to do what we'll call an open label extension, where we will provide the injectable to the women who were on the oral arm if they desire. And then we'll be able to follow both groups of women for a longer period of time to see if they continue to do well and come for their injections. We'll also have to look at all of the individuals who did become infected despite these treatments and see, you know, if there's drug resistance, if there's some reason that they didn't have adequate levels in their body. So we still have a lot of work to do, but I think that it will be quite feasible in a lot of ways, because women in sub-Saharan Africa are already reporting quite regularly for family planning, and it's very similar. And I think that we can set up a system where women could come and get their family planning and their injectable prep. So the models for how that may be done once it can become available, at least have a framework that you can build on.
Fantastic.
That's fabulous. It's really, oh, sorry. Go, Susan.
No, I was just going to say, well, thank you so much, Mina, for coming on. That's incredibly important and so important for women. So
yeah, it's a game changer for them. So I'm quite excited. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
I mean, so this is talking about injectables for PrEP, but I mean, also people are getting very excited about injectables for HIV treatment. And you've been looking at this, Susan?
I have indeed, yes. It's a very exciting development, because for the first time, people living with HIV will not only have the option to take a tablet once a day for HIV treatment. Very soon, people are going to be able to have an injection once a month or once every 2 months. So it's an incredible game changer. I mean, there have been studies that have shown that it's effective, that it's very few side effects, and people are really enthusiastic about it. One study found, I think it was like 2/3 of people living with HIV are interested on potentially having injectable treatment. Well, it's not going to be for everyone, but however, I think it's really important, because for the first time there will be options where it comes to the type of treatment people get. So
yeah,
thumbs
I have
up.
to say, well, whenever I post about it on social media, people get really excited about it. People are like, literally strap me down and inject this into me. And I'm like, okay, brilliant. So as you say, it's about options, and it's about finding something that's going to work, because adherence is so important.
Absolutely.
Now, segue queen, how are we going to get into our next guest? Shall we just bring him on? Can we have Karl Schmid on, please?
How are you going to get into me? I'll segue myself. I, for one, would be up for that injectable. Dr. Fauci said to me a couple of weeks ago, it is proven people suffer from pill fatigue. It's a daily reminder that they're living with HIV. How great would it be if you can get a shot once a month, once every 2 months, like Susan said, and you get on with your life? Thanks for having me.
Susan, that's how it's done. That's how the professional journalists do
and
it.
the best name drop ever. So yeah,
I don't know. I was
was
hanging out with Tom Hanks the other day, and he said,
"Listen,
so
he's a good guy."
Well,
thank you. Thanks for having me on, guys. That was a really interesting conversation you just had. But I did want to chime in on that, because so often what we talk about is the science and the medicine of it. But for a lot of us, and Susan, I was saying this to you off camera earlier, that I just want to know, what's the treatment? Am I healthy? How do I stay undetectable? Don't N's and H's and P2s and LVs, and it means it goes in this ear and out the other, and that's probably bad. It probably shouldn't. I should pay more attention. But that's what my doctors are there for, and those are who I have my trust in, and I realize how lucky I am to be in that position. But when we sort of talk in everyday layman terms, I think we connect with the average Joe or Jill out there who happens to be living with HIV, and it also doesn't feel as frightening, because it's not all medical and science jargon, and that's something that I've been trying to do for the last 2 years is to take that sting out of it and not make it all sound so scary.
Yeah, and you do that so effectively, and that's why we're really keen to have you on the show, Karl. Because I mean, how big a decision was it for you to go open about living with HIV?
Well, I'd been open about it in my sort of personal sphere. I just hadn't been in the professional sphere because of the stigma surrounding it. You know, many well-meaning people had said to me, "Oh, you don't want to become known as the guy with AIDS on television," and you know that fear that I'll be pigeonholed, or worse, I'll be fired or something like else like that. You know, our industry works on advertising and sales dollars, and if ad sales people start pulling out because they're not wanting to be associated with the guy with AIDS or HIV on television, then I'm out of a job. So that all had sat in the back of my mind. But I'll be honest with you, and I've said this plenty of times before, my sort of coming out about my status publicly was purely unplanned, unthought out. You know, a nice photo of me wearing the AIDS Memorial T-shirt, and I thought, oh, I'll post that. And I didn't expect it to blow up the way it did, and you know, thank God it did, because here I am chatting with you guys, and you know, trying to break down these horrible, dangerous stigmas that still exist ridiculously.
It is ridiculous. And what sort of reaction did you get from your colleagues when you came out?
Fantastic. I mean, my big boss at ABC Television here in Los Angeles said to me, and very well-meaning, and it's fun. I rib her about this all the time now, because she said, you know, first of all, you have nothing to worry about. You always have a job here. But second of all, she said, I just don't see how this was 2018, how this is a news story. It shouldn't be a news story. I don't think it is a news story. And I said, well, you're right. You know, it shouldn't be in 2018 a news story, but it is. And just as recently as August, we did a half hour. We did half an hour on television here about HIV and AIDS and what it means to live with AIDS, and to talk about U equals U. And I was very proud to present that show to Southern California and our Los Angeles audiences, and for the station and the network I work with to go, wow, you know, we were wrong. It is still a news story, and we still need to talk about it because people aren't getting tested and aren't going into treatment or adhering to treatment, and we're still villainizing people for, more often than not, doing the one thing that is more natural than anything else, which is having sex. I'll leave the IV drug use and everything else off to the side, but the sexual side of it.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that link, I mean, for me, I always say it's a bit like in the 1970s and 1980s, when kind of homosexuality was not as socially accepted as it is now in some countries. And then people, gay men like myself, and lesbians and bisexual and transgender people started talking about it, started being more open about it, being more forceful about it. But when you know that there are LGBT people in your families and in your workplace and in your church and you know, down the barbershop or what have you, then we're not frightening anymore. And it's the same thing with HIV. The more visible we are, the less frightening it is. And so you've done a fantastic job there.
Well, thank you, Matthew. And I think it's important to note, you know, we still are shown the horror images of the early days of HIV and AIDS. That is still what is used to educate people around the world. And I get it. People are still using scare tactics because they think there's no other way. The problem is that that's not what HIV has to look like anymore. This is what HIV can look like, and countless other colors and faces and types. But for as long as we keep, I keep saying HIV doesn't have to kill, but stigma will. And that's it.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I had someone say to me the other day when I posted the gym selfie, and they said, you shouldn't do that because people mustn't know. You mustn't let people think that it's okay to have HIV. And I'm like, yeah, it's so.
And therein lies the problem, because they all think they're well-meaning, but the problem is we have not had, in my personal opinion, a proper, almost global public health campaign that talks about HIV the same way, and I'm sorry to put it so bluntly, that talks about McDonald's or Coca-Cola or Nike. You know, I'm loving it. Well, I don't always eat McDonald's, and just do it. Okay, but I don't always wear Nike. And, you know, Coca-Cola taught the world to sing, but I don't necessarily drink it. But I know, and I can identify. We don't necessarily like these brands, but we know about them and we know what they stand for. We haven't done that, and it's tricky, I guess, in the medical world. You don't want to trivialize stuff, but It really is as simple as you equals you. That's not scary. That's really simple. But we struggle, especially here in the States, we struggle getting that message out. You know, Prevention Access have done a wonderful job around the world. Here in the States, we all struggle to get that message into certain communities. And I'm often on my show, you know, Plus Life, through Plus Life Media, I'm asking people, why is this so hard to get this out? Why aren't people listening to it and embracing it? You know, all you can do is just keep saying it. Undetectable equals untransmittable, over and over and over and over and over.
You equals you.
Thank
Wonderful.
You. Thank you, Carl.
Well, thank
So great
you
to have you on the show.
much. Lovely to have you.
Thank you for
Carl.
having me. Yes, have a great and happy, as we say here, happy holidays. Although you guys aren't celebrating Thanksgiving, but anyway,
Yeah.
have a good Christmas season.
Have a wonderful time. Bye.
Bye.
I wish we celebrated Thanksgiving. I feel like cheated.
I'm not straying into American politics right now.
But there has been
we did a lot of that.
There have been lots of really exciting stuff happening on the news, particularly around COVID vaccines. I mean, I'm incredibly excited, particularly because for my circumstances, I live with my mum who's 86, and it's really affected my whole family's life. So the thought of a vaccine being around the corner has been incredible.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I'm kind of like, I sit at home and I kind of, you know, read about the number of quantities of particular vaccines that have been bought, and I try and work out how they're going to distribute it. And it is really exciting. It's really exciting that maybe there's kind of a light at the end of the tunnel. But I think we also have to recognize that it's going to take a while to get it out to as many people as need to have it, to make things return to some kind of normality again. And so we still need to carry on with the safeguards which we're doing around wear a mask, remain socially distanced, and be in well ventilated areas. So shall we bring our next guest on?
Absolutely. Our wonderful friend Denis Onyango from Africa Advocacy Foundation.
Hello.
How are you? Denis, and are you somewhere close to me in Croydon? Is that right?
We are Southerners and edging towards Surrey, so we are, you know, the wealthy ones.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It's very glorious and sophisticated in Croydon.
You don't live near the dogging area in Croydon.
Yeah. I'm very proud. We're very proud in terms of the dogging woods near to where I live. Denis, we were just we were talking about how people are feeling about vaccines. I mean, in terms of your service users, you know, what are you hearing about how they're feeling about the importance of vaccines?
Yeah, so I think that you have to look at it in two ways. It depends. So for some of us who are, appreciative of science or who are more informed, I think that there's an appreciation that a vaccine will change a lot, especially given the current circumstances. So we trust, companies like Pfizer and Moderna who have recently produced vaccines. But if you look on the other hand, there's a lot of misinformation about vaccines, and of course there's a lot of vaccine hesitancy among African communities. So social media is a very dangerous place, and there's a lot of fake news spreading, obviously, around whether there's a plan to eliminate populations, and there are concerns around obviously the speed.
Mm-hmm. No. Yeah, no, absolutely. Have I lost Denis as well as Matthew? It seems to be both at the moment, and we are trying to get everyone back. But I would like to talk a little bit about some of the issues that service users at African Advocacy Foundation have been raising, because I've been running some workshops, and misinformation is really causing havoc to lots of people in the Black community, and the fear around COVID has been palpable, and with good reason. So it's going to be really interesting in terms of how people feel when vaccines are available. But it's really been, COVID has really been shining a light on the existing health inequalities that have been affecting people from Black communities for years. I mean, we're not surprised where it comes to the fact that we're more affected by COVID, because it's been in so many different areas. Like particularly in terms of women, there's been issues around maternity, and we're more likely to die in that way. So, and here's Matthew to talk about maternity issues.
Oh, great. My favorite topic. Can't we talk about gay sex instead? I'm really good on that one.
So so just give me a camera and I will bang on about health inequalities. It's my, something I feel.
The important thing to talk about. So well, let's go. Oh, Denis is
here
back.
we've got Denis back.
Technical problems. I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened. But, yeah. So as I was saying.
Oh gosh. Hi, Denis.
And we need to. Hello.
We just
can you hear me
again.
now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
God. Yeah, I'm so sorry.
Denis, one thing we do want to ask you about. I think Matthew, you want to ask Denis.
Well, I was just going to ask you about the latest PHE data, because we've seen some really kind of exciting drops in, PHE, Public Health England, seen some quite exciting drops in new diagnoses amongst all groups, but it has been amongst gay and bisexual men, most of all, much steeper drops amongst gay and bisexual men, and much steeper drops amongst white gay and bisexual men. So what do you think the biggest actions we can take, the most important actions we can take to ensure that all communities are benefiting?
I think that the figures are indicative of obviously the concerns and issues that have not been addressed in Black communities. We know that, for example, PrEP is transformative in many ways. PrEP is excellent, but a lot of our communities are still being left behind, both in terms of the planning and implementation of it. So even though it has been rolled out in England, there's still questions around whether communities we are trying to reach are prepared enough with information to be able to access it. And what worries us is that, some of the development that's coming up. So Dr. Mina just talked about injectable PrEP. So, cabotegravir 2-month injections. Merck has just moved into phase 3 trials of their islatravir 1-month oral PrEP. And we are scared that these are going to leave us behind. So I think that needs to be addressed. Secondly, testing. I think that this testing is still an issue in our communities. We find that there are communities where undiagnosed HIV is still high, West African communities, a lot of men. I think that we need to look at that. And Matthew, I'm so glad that you chaired the HIV Commission, and the report is coming out soon. I hope that some of those issues will be highlighted and we can find solutions on that. And I think that we just need to be able to take testing to the community. I don't think that particular attention is still being paid a lot as to what the benefits of testing may be. But I also feel that U equals to U messaging is not moving as well as it should in our communities. So I would appreciate that some of those should be addressed.
And Denis, you're going to be working on a very exciting campaign to encourage people to test. Is that right?
Yes. So for now, I'm running Champions project in the community. Susan, you had to mention that. I know. But yeah, we are running this exciting program where we have, one thing that we've actually experienced in the past, and I think that I want to thank NAM for thinking about this, was that we previously lacked the face of HIV within our communities because of stigma. So we, very few people are able to come out about their status, and we got some very excellent champions through Susan's charming nature. Of course, we managed to get our champions to come, and we got some very fantastic videos actually that will encourage people to test, because there's still a lot of misinformation. So many of our community members think that you can actually, if you don't have papers in this country, you cannot access HIV testing. And I think that message we were quite keen to highlight that, and we did it successfully. Issues around the rights of men who have sex with men and homophobia within communities is still very high. Issues around faith communities and HIV. So we have managed to capture all these, and we have an excellent testing service where you can order a test online. It will arrive into your address without any packaging, so nobody will know. And you can actually do the test in private and contact us when you need help. You need support, or if you need to get further interventions, and we'll be there to help you and support you all the way.
Wonderful. So watch this space. It's going to be coming out very soon, hopefully by the end of the year. So look out for some amazing videos. So thank you so much, Denis. I think we have run out of time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Denis.
Thank you for coming on.
Bye.
Well, I would like to thank all of our incredible guests, Disruptive Live for keeping us going through this, Wandsworth Oasis for their support.
Yeah, I just want to also say, because we're coming up to World AIDS Day, I really want to thank Wandsworth Oasis for their support, but recognize that World AIDS Day is often a time not only for remembering those we lost and for setting goals for the future, but it's also a time where charities are able to fundraise, and so many of the HIV organizations have not been able to fundraise in the usual way this year because of COVID. So all the kind of shops and the events, the kind of things which are not happening. Our Wandsworth Oasis, who sponsor us, have an online auction at the moment. So if you go and check out their website, you can bid on items. There's some wonderful lots there, and that will help support work like this and other HIV prevention and support work. So please, if you can, if you're able, do look out for the charities right now, because they will really need your support this World AIDS Day.
Absolutely. And they have got a really brilliant Donald Trump toilet brush, I saw, as one of the things.
I do not want to think about that. Can we finish on a happy note?
Yes. Well, next week, it will not be Matthew, it will be me and guests for aidsmap Live. So it will be our World AIDS Day special. So do please join me and my guests next Thursday at 6 p.m. And Matthew, will you be behind the scenes as my glamorous assistant?
No, I'll be nowhere near. I'll be out drinking or something like that, or I'll be at home drinking. But I will be back in 2 weeks' time for the next edition of aidsmapCHAT, and I hope that people will join us for that as well. Thank you very much. Bye.
Okay, thank you. Bye.